Well, good morning, beloved community and beloved family, uh, meditators, and welcome if this is the first time you've been with us. This is our weekly WeAwake meeting where we meditate together. And I don't know, a couple of years ago, I think we've been doing this now. We were all together for before the pandemic when you could get together, and we met somebody. We'd meditate a lot together because that's what we do. And somebody suggested, this is very powerful when people meditate together. Individual meditation is wonderful too, but when you meditate, there's a field that's created, an energy is palpable, and research has said it is so. So it's a good thing, and it's a good thing to be with others. And we're going through some really crazy times on dear old Mother Earth, and it's all the problems on Earth are caused by one thing: you and me, right? So yeah, it's human beings. There's no problems that we can really look at, except for maybe occasional earthquake and all. But even the weather issues we're having, we're doing our part to mess things up. So it is inherent for us to work on ourselves. And one of the best ways to work on yourself is an inner practice of meditation, which meditation's a bunch, right? You still the mind, or not that, just observe the thoughts as they arise. And you, instead of getting caught up in it, you just kind of step back. You can also do that with emotional stuff that comes out. Totally allow it to be there. If you're experiencing grief, or something's coming up from the past, trauma or something, the practice is just to say, welcome teacher, and let it be there. It's not the thing is not trying to get rid of it, but totally accept it as it emerges. And you can tell when it comes up. And I had to do a lot of work on myself this way when I first discovered this technology, and it really helped. But you can feel the pain, you can feel the anxiety in different places in your body, and different people experience it in their bodies in different places. But mine was usually right here, my heart. And I would just learn to say, thank you, teacher. And it would build up. And if it was big things, sometimes I'd meditate a lot longer. I was meditating an hour or sometimes 2 or 3 hours at a time with this technology. It wasn't WeAwake yet, but still, the stuff is really powerful. And if you don't believe me, do a 2-hour meditation with this stuff, with these tracks. And I'm probably thick-skulled and probably takes me longer than most, but usually after the hour, boy, it really, really deepens, and the mind stills, and you're just in that presence. And there's a lot of peace and beauty and a lot of healing that goes on there. So unfortunately today we only have it's a little under 20 minutes, our track that we selected to do. And this is Deeply Theta. And who can guess what brainwave state we're using? Obviously Theta. And Theta is a really good track, because it's kind of that brainwave state that's in between the conscious and the unconscious mind. And that's a place where people have visions, have insights, hear from God, talk to God, get visited by angels. All this cool stuff can happen in Theta. And so it's a beautiful, and that stuff is useful too. Obviously we want stillness and non-duality, but that's where we go sometimes. But all the other stuff I think is equally important developmentally. So without further ado, thank you for being here, and thank people that meditate with us all the time. It's great to have you back. Thank you for adding your energy and your beauty to these sessions, and it's always good to be with my WeAwake and deep transformation folks. So let's do it. Wow. Welcome back, everyone. And thank you for sitting with us. It's good. Just want to talk about a couple of things. One of the things that we've been doing for a few months is kind of an off branching or something that's grown out of WeAwake is we're doing a podcast called Deep Transformation. And I'm the co-host with Dr. Roger Walsh, who is author of many books. He's a psychiatrist and a PhD. And we were all reading a book, Essential Spirituality, that he wrote years ago. I mean, the team here, and it's a great book. I admired him for many years when I was in grad school. He was always, I saw him speak at conferences. So somehow we became friends at a conference, and he had just lost his wife, Frances Fawn, who was a very esteemed writer and author and therapist in her own right. And I lost my parents, and we just connected and we started talking, and we kept the connection going on the phone and after the conference. And at one point I got the inspiration. I said, Roger, do you want to do a podcast together? And he said, well, I think so. So it was amazing. And because here was doing a podcast with somebody I've always really admired, and I'm inviting everybody to listen to it, because the idea of the podcast, I mean, why do another podcast, right? Well, the idea of the podcast, Deep Transformation, that we're going to try to go deeper and beyond, the normal talking points. If you've just written a book, or, the normal things, talk about what you do and all this stuff, and try to find, what's underneath that. How did it, what brought you to do this thing with your life, and how did this develop, and just kind of open that up. And many of the people, I don't know how many interviews we've done now, 20 or something like that. They haven't released them all, but they remarked that how this was a very different conversation that they'd ever had. And so that was kind of the vision, and that's actually what emerged. And there's a dialogue, comes from dia logos, and logos is the verb or the spirit or the energy or the wisdom that moves through all things. It says in John chapter 1, in the beginning was the word. We weren't talking about a bunch of letters and semicolons and grammar. We were talking about the verb, this thing. And that seems to open up, and then it becomes a spiritual practice. And I have really been blessed by it, and had my life deepened, and very grateful at this stage of my career to be able to do that with a man I admire as I do, Roger. He's just a great guy. He's very precise, and he's quite the scholar, and he's probably everything that I'm not. But anyways, together it seems to work. And we just did a conversation. Roger wasn't there, but I did one with some colleagues of mine from the Ukraine, whom I'd met again at a conference in Europe some years ago. And they had just gotten out of the Ukraine. The husband was Lithuanian, but he said, I proudly consider myself a Ukrainian now. He loved Ukraine a lot. And Katarina, the wife, she's a psychologist and a PhD, and she's worked with people with trauma from the earlier Russian invasion. Anyway, she's a magnificent person, and it just inspired us to do what we could to support them. So we're going to be, I think we sent out a preliminary letter to the WeAwake team that we're going to open up this funnel to work directly with these people, because sometimes if you don't know where to give money, and it might be a big, some big organization, and there's administrative costs and there's red tape and all this stuff. And, people are dying right now. They need bandages and tourniquets and everything right now. So I started just PayPaling money to her, and she's been really great, showing me everything she's doing, and families are showing up. They have nothing, and they're getting together, and they're making first aid kits and some training to send back into Ukraine, where so many people are being killed and wounded. And it's really opened my heart up a lot. So we're gonna send do something this week and allow everyone that's, part of the WeAwake to, or not, to pick a track that you would like from our substantial library now, a track that you've been wanting or one that you feel called to, and just give a donation. And the money will go directly to these people, Dr. Katrina and Vitus Yasko, whom we've been talking to and working with. And it really helps, and of course we're having this 21st century war. You can see all, you see the tanks blowing up, you can see the bodies, you can see, everybody's got these phones. It's like in Vietnam, we saw a little bit of it because there were some reporters around, but now everybody has it. So it becomes very personal what's going on, and this destruction of cities and the war crimes and everything. So it really helps to be able to give. And there's just nothing bad you can say about it. It's good for the soul, and it connects you with those people who are suffering. And anyway, and there's a lot of suffering in the world too, but this has really been front and center for a lot of us recently. And we can do something. So, and also let me recommend that you, listen to Deep Transformation as part of your your spiritual practice, because they're really, really good. And this week, I think we released Dr. Steve McIntosh. I think he's a PhD, but anyway, he should be if he's not. And he's a scholar and a great thinker, an integral thinker. And he did a book called Developmental Politics that I just loved. And it is pointing a way beyond the culture wars and beyond the horrible divisions that have developed in the United States, and I think in many parts of the world too, between the progressives and the conservatives from the Wokistan and the Magistan on the other side, and the attitudes get really similar. Far left and far right you go. So it's really enlightening and inspiring, and we need inspiration. We need wisdom. Wisdom is a good thing. And Dr. Walsh has been writing a book on wisdom for a long time, and he's considered one of the leading world experts on wisdom. Go figure, right? And I get to work with this guy. And I was invited to a panel during the pandemic, so it's obviously it's all online. I forget, it was a university or something, or some organization, and the topic was wisdom. And I was like, you want me on a panel talk about wisdom? I said, okay, I'll do my best. And what came through to me is, I think we've all experienced that, and that's when we're speaking from a place that's deeper than our normal run around lovely cute ego self. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's as much God as anything else, right? Our personal individual selves. But yeah, sometimes I've noticed that when I'm giving talks or teaching, or when I used to do coaching and counseling online, they would just start coming through me, and people would go, wow. And I would go, wow too, because it feels like you're being used as a vessel, or you're being used as a channel. As the St. Francis prayer says, Lord, make me an instrument or a channel of your peace. And that's one of the better experiences, that when you feel you're being used and that's coming through you. And in order to be used in that way more often, I think it is, unless you're just some kind of bodhisattva was born, and you figured it out lifetimes ago, but most of us aren't like that. We're we have to work on ourselves. And so we do the inner work, we do the meditation, and we do the inner prayer, the contemplative practice of resting in the presence, and that restores our souls and does so many things. And we also need to study and listen to wise people and read the right books and do this stuff. And then, we create some kind of alchemical mix that stuff can come through us more readily and more often. And so that's pretty cool. And it's nice to experience that. And you can go, okay, well, maybe there's some payoff on all these, all this meditation, all these books I've been reading and people I've been listening to for all these years. And it starts coming through you. And that's really a beautiful thing. But oftentimes we have to go to, well, I've been talking about this a lot in the past few years of vision quest, finding your purpose. And often when you find your purpose, you have to go through an internship or with where you're not the master yet. You haven't mastered, and you're working with people that are further down the road than you are. And it's a good thing. And it's what humans do. So, and then you get to that point of, mastery, then, elderhood, and there's all these different stages in life. And so another thing we need to, those of us who are getting older, it's good to become elders, right? That's like old people who have, who have something of value to share, and not just an old person, right? So that's what we should shoot for in our lives, that eventually we want to go through all these stages that are kind of laid out in our deep psyches and into our lives in the place that we need to be, so that we've actually done the work that we're supposed to be. And, and it doesn't matter, if it's a big thing or a little thing, it's just the thing that you're supposed to be doing. And one of the greatest tragedies in life is that when you don't become the person you were born to be, you had the potential of becoming. And I've seen that so often, right? And for years, Pam and I worked with alcoholics and addicts, and it's a rough job because you win some and you lose some. And we've had, I had students who, gone on and had great lives and contributed a lot. And then I've had people that didn't, and it destroyed them, it killed them, or, as good as dead in some cases. So, yeah, that's one of the pitfalls, addiction. I mean, there's all kinds of things that can happen to get you off the path. It's like when Jesus went out in the desert, I think it's the book of Matthew, for 40 days and 40 nights before he started his ministry, they call it. I don't think it says ministry in the New Testament and in the Matthew, but that's what people call it. But anyway, so he had to go out in the desert, and Satan, this malign force came and tempted him with all these different things. And I'm sure you guys remember all that. I don't have to recite it. But yeah, there's a lot of temptations to get you off the path that's being laid out before you, that your soul is saying, this is what you're supposed to do. And in the beginning, maybe it's just a hint, or maybe sometimes you hear it really clearly. It's happened to me before. I'm just walking down doing my thing, and all of a sudden the voice just like, you're done here. It's time to do the next thing. It's like, oh, really? Yeah. So you need to listen to that. And, once you find what you're supposed to be doing, you still have to keep working on it to make sure you're doing it as good as possible. And, we're all have our problems and issues and make mistakes and fall on our faces a lot. But I think Ram Dass said that spiritual progress happens 2 body lengths at a time, fall on your face, getting up, something like that. So that's part of the journey. But as long as we're on the journey, and if we're on the journey, no matter what happens on the outside, it grounds us in a sense of purpose and meaning. And as we deepen in our spiritual experiences and practice, we learn that we're not alone. We don't have to do it by ourselves. There's spirit, there's God, there's things that are there to support us and help us. And one time I was in this deep spiritual space, and it happened that I've told this story before, but it happens sometimes. I feel like the oracles are open, and I can ask any question and I'll get the answer. So it's like, the 3 wishes and the genie. It's like, you don't want to screw it up and ask for something really stupid, then you ask for 3 stupid things, and the genie says, see ya, thanks for that. And but the question was, I said, well, that's a big question. And the question was, what about death? Right? That's imminent for all of us. It may happen. It may happen while you're watching this. It may happen later. It may happen in 70 years. We don't know, but it's going to happen. And what the voice in the presence said was, this was God speaking, or what I took to be God. It sure felt like God. It was amazing. He said, I will be there. So I was like, wow, that's enough. That's good enough. Yeah, I didn't have any follow-up questions. Well, what does that mean? It's like, I got it somehow in my spirit. I got it. So anyway, those are the things that we can we can accumulate on the way, and the things that become kind of cornerstones or pillars of our spiritual building that we're hopefully making out of our lives. That's based on service and knowing what you're here to do, and becoming more deeply and effectively spiritual. And it sure helps, because I don't think I could have made it this far without that. So I think that is probably more than enough for today. So thank you for hanging in here, and thank you for meditating with us. And let our prayers and support go out to our Ukrainian brothers and sisters. And let's hope the Russian people will stop this stuff. Okay. And pray for them too. But yeah, and we'll be sending out an email later. Please open it and check it out. And you can get, like I said, you can get any track that you really want, and just give a donation as much as you can, you know. And some of us got a lot of money, and some of us don't have barely any, but you know, however much you give is noted. And these people are so grateful. It's really, really moving. I was on a call with, I'm rambling again, but I was on a call with some Ukrainian young folks, younger than me. And some are inside Ukraine and some are on the outside, you know, working to try to support people. And they feel so grateful. Had no idea that there would be this kind of support for them worldwide. So they're really, really feeling it. And perhaps this would be a change, you know, a change in world history and our attitudes to one another. Maybe we can stop being so hateful and so obnoxious, and learn that we need to really love and support one another. And what's going on in the Ukraine will turn out for the good of all, and all our brothers and sisters, including the non-human. So anyway, that's it. I'm not going to say any more. Love you guys. Thank you for being with us one more time, and God willing, we'll see you next week. Thanks, everybody.